Hello everyone, Anina Malherbe-Lan back for Vivid Earth, and today I've got a very special guest. I've got Simon Parkes on. He is kind of a legend in this whole truth movement and really connecting with a higher consciousness and aiding the evolution of humanity on this planet, in my opinion. So we're thrilled to have Simon on board. Welcome, Simon. How are you?
Thank you. I'm glad you have an opinion like that. That's very good. Very well, thank you. Of course, we're all struggling with the world situation at the moment.
Yeah, crazy times we live in, and also quite an extraordinary time to be alive as we are at the precipice of this big shift, as we call it. But of course, you know, we can only see what sort of we can get clues of what's happening on the front, but at the back end, I'm sure there's a lot of struggles going on. I'm just going to quickly introduce Simon for those that may not be familiar, although I think pretty much everyone is familiar with him. But Simon grew up in a family that had links to British American intelligence. His mother worked for MI5. She was managed by MI5, but effectively working for the NSA. And his grandfather was actually working for MI6, again, reporting to the CIA. So pretty much the three-letter agencies, very familiar with that space. His grandfather was also a British diplomat. Simon also worked for a while, I believe, in government in the UK. And he started, he had a lot of interaction and contact with sort of supernatural experiences, UFOs, and that was kind of his passion for a long time. And he's been withstanding quite a lot of bullets over the years, not real bullets, but, just in terms of his character.
You did.
Real bullets as well, I'm sure. And he's just a trailblazer. So, we're really grateful for him just, continuing the path. And he founded Connecting Consciousness with his wife, Rebecca, a wonderful movement that's now global, more than 100,000 members. So phenomenal work in terms of just aiding the awakening of the planet and bringing people together and helping people develop their own consciousness. But Simon, maybe, I'm sure I left out some crucial details. Maybe you want to fill us in on just a little bit of focus here and there in terms of your background.
Thank you. No, I won't. But I just want to say that I did work for government. I was employed as a council officer in what we call the regeneration departments, but separately to that, I was a politician, so I worked for the people. So as an employee of the government working, then I was an employee, but when I was a politician, different to that, then I worked for the people. So that's the only comment I wanted to make.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've got a good view of what's happening on the inside in these places. You've seen and heard a lot of things over the years, which I think gives you a unique perspective in terms of, having seen both sides of the coin and now effectively sort of assisting this alliance or, being out there in terms of,
I think that's a really good point, because all of us, when we travel through our life or lives here, we either choose to learn it and do something about it, or we choose to ignore it and, just sail on. And if we have opportunities to learn, then maybe we can use those opportunities to express ourselves in ways that do assist others. So no doubt, being a politician in Great Britain, working in government in Great Britain, gave me a very clear idea of how not to do things. But it also showed me how the system works. That was an eye-opener. So when, we were approached some years ago now to, do some humanitarian projects, I can draw on those experiences, because unfortunately we will have to operate within some form of red tape, within some form of government structure. And so the experiences I've had working in government, I think, will allow me to deliver projects faster than if I'd not had that experience. Yes, obviously, coming up through the life I've had, you use the word supernatural. Just for clarification, I would use supernatural for things like poltergeists. I am aware of them. Very little experience of supernatural, far more experience with non-Earth human entities, aliens, UFOs, which the elite of both the good side and the bad side are fully aware of my background. So yeah, hopefully all these skills that we have allow all of us who are trying to do good work on the earth, help us to do it quicker.
Absolutely. I believe there are no accidents. Our backgrounds are uniquely designed to provide us with the tools and the knowledge and the wisdom today to kind of help us serve humanity in a way. So most definitely your background and your family's background is assisting you, and it just gives you a whole different perspective. Simon, you're doing amazing work with connecting consciousness as well. Maybe just tell us briefly kind of where that is standing today, what kind of points you would like to touch on there. It's an amazing initiative.
Well, we just did a very quick update, which will be put out on the website probably later today, where I'm thanking a lot of the United States CC coordinators, event hosts, and even the admins, and certainly the members. We're doing some, in our own small way, disaster relief. We've got 41 boxes of emergency supplies to a first little center that we've set up. That's for parts of Tennessee. We've got certain groups. We don't use FEMA. We don't use any of the official organizations. We can't guarantee it's going to get to where it's going to get. So we're doing it under the radar, small groups, sending it out. And I did a call out today for any American members who want to get involved and help. Might not be American, you might be in Britain, you might be in Europe, you may have some connections, or you just may care about humanity and you may be in a position to assist. So if you are listening to this as well, please contact your coordinator, and if you want to help, see how you can help. So that's a positive physical expression of what CC can do and should do, which is respond quickly without huge bureaucratic nightmare. Some of these big organizations take days and weeks to get things done. I had a call 2 days ago with the group in the US leading on it, and I just gave them a free hand within that. And I said, just get on and do it. Don't keep coming back to me, just do it. You see a problem, sort it, do it. And that means that we've very quickly been able to work with Amazon and others who can deliver to warehouses in the devastated areas. And then we've got a dedicated group of volunteers who will take those supplies out. So that is a real practical thing that CC is doing. Plenty of groups talk the talk, but they don't actually do the walk. And here's an example of where we do it. So your question was a bit broader than that, really. When I first started out, I set Connecting Consciousness up as an organization so that people could network, share, and realize that they weren't on that. There are plenty of people out there who just didn't accept the mainstream narrative. And thanks very much to Becky and how she organized the United States. I said to her how I wanted to do it, but she did it. And we've got a very strong network, a very strong team. And thank God for that, because we're able to draw on that to support and help. So CC really is a very large worldwide organization that is a spiritual organization, that we have debates and topics on spiritual matters. We talk about intel, latest things are happening in the world. Of course, as many of your audience will know, I have 5 NDAs with the RV. And so, therefore, this organization is very involved with that. And obviously can't perhaps talk about as much as we'd like. But so answer your question, yes, we have quite a route way, a connection out there. And just to give an example of the difference perhaps between ourselves and others, and I never criticize people openly, actually, unless they really deserve it. One person was saying they had back channels, you see, and they got all their information. And they didn't know what a back channel was. A back channel is a general to a general. That's what a true back channel is, a general in the Pentagon to another general. And when it came to it, of course, they didn't know any generals. They didn't have any connection. And that story ties in very neatly in about last year, I think. My PA and I were interviewing a range of people who wanted to take some roles on in the United States. And one person there was a veteran, had just literally come out of serving, worked in the Pentagon. And she was a PA herself. and she said that now she could talk openly. She'd gone in about 9:30 in the morning with some documents that a 3-star general had to sign. So she was a PA to a 3-star general. And she said that when she went in, I think this is 2010 or 11, so it's a long time ago. And when she went in and had the papers, the guy, the general, turned the screen and he was watching me on a podcast. And he said to his PA, now, of course, she's our member in America, look at this guy, watch this guy, he's interesting. Keep an eye on him. So a 3-star general was watching my podcast back in 2010, 2011. So when you look at that and you think, well, actually, it's not so surprising where this organization is now, because we've consistently held the line. I don't mean it in the military sense. I mean, in terms of the truth line, we've held that. We've maintained what we're about, and we've done our best, and we've come to the attention of certain people. So we're not a faith group. We're not a church group. We're not a magic group. There's plenty of those esoteric societies out there. We're just a general group for any good people who want to join and do something for humanity. So service for others, not service for self. And the only people we won't take Satanists. We won't take people who hurt children. We're quite strong on, and if we find anyone like that, we immediately remove them, because these people do try and infiltrate. The cabal do try and infiltrate. So that keeps us on our toes. So it's a long answer. I'm sorry about that, but your question was really good.
No, it was really interesting. I think connecting consciousness is absolute inspiration, because it kind of joined this race, so to speak, or this war very early on. And it really is an inspiration to show others what can be done. And it is about the consistency, as you said. It's just keep going, be consistent, and just do what you can within your power and grow that network and grow, look at what you've done, 100,000 people globally. It's an absolute inspiration. So yeah, wonderful work. And I'm not surprised that a 3-star general has been watching you. And as you say, you do hold some NDAs, and you get some very crucial information that may affect, the people on the humanitarian projects, especially, that I know that you're very active in. Are there something, I know that you can't share much, but what are the things that you can share with us in terms of what's currently happening, where we are in this big process? Because everyone has been expecting this RV, obviously, for quite some time now. Looks like we're pretty close. Is there anything that you can share with us that kind of will help people?
I think one of the hardest things is the length of time this has gone on for. And if you believe in it, it's very hard to keep positive about it, because so many people around us say it's just make believe, or you're fake, and it's never going to happen. Because the concept that somebody in power would, through a mechanism, give money to people who are not in power is just alien to this world. But we are dealing with a new concept here, so it is very real. Although my understanding of how the RV will play out is very different from, say, people like Bruce or Marxy or Wolverine. I have a different understanding and a different take on how that RV will express itself. But I do agree with all the names I've just given that there will be an RV. But it will not happen in the way that people were told. I will answer your question, but I'm just giving as best I can. I'm just giving some background. When this was all set up, it was very well known that if you placed certain key leaders or locations in the top of the text, everyone would be watching them. So everyone's watching certain areas in America or certain named individuals to go first. That's not the case. It's happening around them, which means that those individuals who are staring and watching the news are not looking in the right places, because there are so many bad people. There are people with container loads of dinar, and it's all fake, and they're trying to get that in, trying to get money on that. There are people with fake bonds, or there are people with genuine bonds or genuine currency, but they set a front man up, but the guy behind him is a cabal. And so we've had a number of what I call false starts. So the named RV commentators I've given you have been given information. It's going to happen on, say, Tuesday or Thursday. So they are told Tuesday or Thursday, and they believe it because that's the information they've been given. So they push that out, and they have much more effect than they realize. So that information gets out, and all the bad guys are actually watching people like Wolverine and Mark Z and Bruce. They're watching. And they think, well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So they then do something which allows the good guys to detect it and pick it up. So all these false starts are deliberate to entrap and catch, or as I say, vacuum up lots of currency that otherwise wouldn't have surfaced like a submarine. So the position that we take in Connecting Consciousness is that this organization will be funded to deliver humanitarian projects, just as a faith group will. There are lots of church groups, actually, that were very helpful when JFK was murdered. There were some faith groups that really, within hours, came around the general group in the Pentagon and supported them. And they're going to be rewarded for that. They're not forgotten that. People who stood strong at 9/11. So lots of individuals or groups that have proved themselves over many years and have, like us, have worked for no wages. It's a volunteer organization. We haven't been paid wages. Because if we'd been paid, we'd actually not be doing God's work. We'd actually be an employee. So, of course, you work because you're given wages. If you don't give wages, it's your choice whether you do it or not. And if you choose to do that, then the powers that be, and I mean the good powers that be, will say, well, this group, this individual, this team, they're giving up their own time. They're not being rewarded, but we will reward them at the end when the time's right. So it's a self-filtering process. You start with 100 people, maybe you end up with 20, because lots of people drop off because it's not for them, through some very genuine reasons, actually. And some people are evil, and it comes out. Some people just can't stay the course. So everything is a test on this planet. Come back to what you said, nothing's for chance. And if you make it across the finish line, you were meant to finish.
Okay. I always say it was meant to take this long. You know, there's a lot of filtering, as you say, that needs to happen. And also people's consciousness need to develop, because this is a, you know, quite a concept, and people need to be ready for that, you know, to be, that redistribution of wealth is not something that humans know how to deal with, you know.
Quite right.
But, you know, a lot of people still think, oh, it's, you know, it's too good to be true, and it's not going to happen. And, you know, you've got those people, and, you know, it's all about having faith in the outcome, because we are the co-creators, we are the manifestors as well. So if we say it can't happen, well, then it can't happen. So it's really about, you know, saying it is possible, goodness is possible, and generosity and abundance for the entire planet is possible. So I think that is such a, you know, crucial thing to wrap our minds around.
Yeah, you've said some really lovely words there, and many people have lost the faith, not in God, they've lost faith in believing, not permanently, just temporarily. And with everything they're watching on the television, particularly the television, and just to a lesser extent, the newspapers, they are forming an opinion that what is it all about? They actually don't know anymore. And to some extent, I think we need to have this, because the faith connection between the individual and his or her government actually needs to be broken, because in most cases, not all, in most cases, government's not there actually for the people. Government is there because it's part of the self-perpetuating matrix. And I think what many countries have seen is just how flimsy their government is when it comes to choices between humanity and, you know, looking after themselves. So the path that humanity's on is one that, as you sort of said, we were always meant to do. It was meant to take this length of time. And I think that what will happen is the people who come through this will be the enablers. You talked about the creators. That's quite right. They will be the enablers of what resources come through. But what we mustn't do, for God's sake, is alienate all those who didn't believe, because I do not want an us and them society, because we're no better off than we would be now. So all the majority, in fact, of people who don't believe, rather than say, you were wrong, aren't you stupid? It's much better to say, well, okay, you didn't get it right that time. How about getting it right this time? How about getting involved and doing something now while you can? So that will be our position. I know there'll be a number of commentators who will not be able to resist to point a finger and have a go at those who didn't believe them. But that's actually pointless, and it doesn't help humanity. We're better off to get moving quickly and start doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and ultimately it's about uniting, right? We've been divided for eons. So it's time to realize we all have, well, not all, but predominantly all good humans have the same thing in mind, and once we can get over the scarcity concept, well, then people can stop competing and stop pointing fingers and judging others, and really just think about, what do we have in common here? What are the goals that we have in common? We want to make this planet great again. Sorry, make the planet great again, not just America.
I feel a hat coming on. I would just put on that one of the issues that hasn't worked generally, particularly in the United States, is because of the capitalist connection. One of the ideas about giving and sharing in many ways seems to work in a religious setting, but doesn't seem to work in a setting where families have got very little money anyway. So one of the things that I think we're looking at is to say that individuals through the coming years should actually be proportionately better off financially, whether that's a tax being reduced or student loans going down, interest on a credit card being reduced. I'm not sure. But if you ensure that individuals and families are no longer worried about how they're going to pay the grocery bills or the utility bills or put gas in their car, petrol in their car, then they'll have more capacity to be concerned about other people. And that's the key. What the cabal has done is kept people so desperately worried from day to day that most people can't sit down and give anything and project forward. Take away those stresses and strains, and then I think we'll see what humanity really is capable of.
Absolutely. They've been keeping us in survival mode for for so long that people don't know how to go beyond that, so it's going to be very interesting to watch over the coming years. And but you said a lot of interesting things, and it is just going to be very interesting to see how things unfold. In terms of humanitarian projects, what are your views? I mean, I know that you guys are vetting a lot of these projects. Sorry for the noise in the background if it is there, but you're building this healing sanctuary next to the house, and
you should live here.
A lot of noise. But in terms of the humanitarian projects, people that want to get involved, it hasn't yet. Is there still time to get involved? What do you recommend people do if they want to start a humanitarian project?
Okay, well, I can't recommend. Well, I can, but I won't. I can just say that the procedure that I set up here, because as I said earlier, we have a different take. I have a different take on how the RV will play out, and I don't really want to get too much into that because it's too difficult for people who are convinced of a particular way forward. I don't want to get into that argument. It's not helpful. So basically, if somebody has a really good idea and they're not a member of CC, then they need to join my organization, and it's free. And the reason that it's free is because I didn't want to mix money and good energy. Everywhere you go, generally, it costs money to join a club. That's what it is. It's even some people charge for their intel. I've never charged for my intel. I believe that poor people and rich people should have access to my intel. I don't just believe that people with money could have the information, because that's just the world we're in. I mean, that's the elite get everything and the rest of us get nothing. So I think that if an individual joins this organization and has a really good idea, they put that forward. There's a place on the website. They submit it, they fill a form in, it's collected. As connecting consciousness Getting close to the NDAs now. As connecting consciousness is pointed towards certain countries that will activate, I then will work with a very small team and will go through the projects submitted for that country or that state if it's in America, and I will look at those that are realistic and do bring value, and then that will go somewhere else. And if that passes there, that project is funded and those individuals are looked after. So that's how it happens. I always had a very strong difficulty with the concept of, I say ordinary people, that sounds rude. I don't mean it that. I mean people who don't have a connection to the military. They don't have a lifelong track record of, obviously doing good things. They may well have done good things locally, but it hasn't hit the marker, shall we say. I've had a very difficult situation with them going to a certain place and being given $1 billion and told, there you go, now do a project. And the story I give about my mother is that long before she became part of British intelligence and American intelligence, for something like 3 or 4 years, they followed her. 3 or 4 years, they followed her, knew what her routine was, knew who her friends were, all of that, before they then decided, yeah, she's passed. We are now going to offer her a job in American intelligence or British intelligence. So the concept that somebody would walk into a location, receive $1 billion, and then here sign an NDA, it doesn't work. The people who are behind this have known of me probably before I was born. They knew my mother. They knew her father. You mentioned, my grandfather, who was British diplomat and CIA, MI6. So they knew what they were getting, and sure to God, they've interacted with me alongside other things ever since I was a very young baby. So I was a known entity. Even so, it's a world of choice, free will. When you give somebody an opportunity, what do they do with it? Do they do what you hope they'll do, or do they completely go the other way and do that? So I've always thought that there was a great place for us to deliver projects, because I see it as the only way, a structured organization. There will be church groups doing it. There will be other groups. There will be multinationals doing it. That's a big thing for a lot of patriots to imagine, corporations running it. But remember, these guys have been removed at the top. They've actually got new chief executives. They've got new directors. They are people who are good guys. So right across the planet, there will be a whole host of organizations delivering humanitarian projects. And if you want to get on board and you're genuine and you're serious, not just out for yourself, because I don't want you if you're out for yourself. And we don't want those sort of people. But if you really want to help, yeah, you'll get wage, of course. It's got to be something in it for these people. They've got to manage it spiritually. So join the organization, put in a form. It's a 10-year program. And I have been told that there is the resources to fund a lot of the projects that we've already got forward. So it's an incredibly exciting time. But I will just finish off by saying it's not, projects are an expression of spirituality. It's not everything is built for this and then, oh, what do we do now? This is an expression of it, because if you lose your spirituality, your projects lose that edge and they just become like any other going concern. So we have won this concession because of our spiritual strength. And Becky does a fantastic job every month with a couple of other people. I can't give their names because they haven't given me permission to use their names, but they draw up monthly spiritual topics which go out to the coordinators. The coordinators then should really fully engage with their members, and they debate that, talk about that. And those topics aren't religious. They're about development of ourselves and development about the planet. So that's where we are with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting point you raised as well, because I think people are so financially minded, if you will, that they always tie money to something, and you just can't, because it will corrupt, the very essence of what we're trying to do here. And of course, as you say, there is compensation. Pretty soon, no one on the planet would need to worry about, being abundant, because there will be abundance on the planet, in the not too distant future. But it will probably be a bit of a phased kind of rollout as well, because people's consciousness need to catch up with the fact that first we didn't have at all, or now we're going to have almost too much. So how do you get from zero to hero? And you've got to, spiritually kind of absorb the concept and understand what it means. And you can't be driven by finances. You've got to just be driven by doing the right thing and doing it effectively. And as much, these projects, obviously there is a financial model. It needs to be managed. Monies need to be managed properly. But at the end of the day, it's not about, you have to get out of that business mind of cutting corners and profitability and profit margins and, putting way too much pressure on employees. That whole sort of model about, just chasing the bottom line will need to change in people's minds completely.
Well, I think it's about what we call modeling. So if you set up, let's say, for instance, CC were to set up a school, and that's quite feasible, quite possible. If it's done correctly, then parents or guardians of children in other schools will say, well, they're doing it that way. Why can't you do it that way? So in other words, it forces, in a metaphysical way, actually, it forces organizations to adapt and change to deliver what the individual or the end user, the customer, wants, rather than what the corporation or the organization wants. So the organization, for instance, wants a desk that says complaints above it, and there's one poor person that sits there, and that's what the organization wants. Whereas what it really should say is, why are these complaints being generated? Let's deal with it. But it's much more expensive to look at what's causing the complaints and to deal with it. So organizations, as you said, will go for the cheaper option. And what we want is a format where an individual CC person, who doesn't have to be an accountant, doesn't have to be a construction expert, but they have to be spiritually minded. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got that far. And their job is not to say, look, that's 4 cents or 4 pennies too much per brick. Their job is to maintain that spiritual value base for that organization, and they will have a team of people who will provide the expertise. But they have to be the driving force. So not everyone can do that, because you've got to be very, very committed for the long haul and to have a very clear value-based system. But there are so many people that want to live for today and be rewarded today, and rather than tomorrow. So again, it's a process that will naturally select people out.
And you mentioned your contract is for 10 years. Does that mean when it kicks off, these projects will run for 10 years, or what is sort of the long-term vision on these projects?
Okay, I didn't actually use the word contract, but I let that go. I said it's a 10-year thing. The point is that after 10 years, we should have turned the corner, because we've got to run this alongside educational programs. Any projects that are valuable, delivering what they said they would deliver, will be refunded. But the 10 years are the crucial period to turn things around. I mean, there is so much money available, and Becky and I often, it's staggeringly incomprehensible that a Western government, will turn around and say, well, we haven't got much money, we can't really fill the holes in the road, can't get all the lights in the street working. But when you do what we do, you know exactly how much money there is, and that we're being lied to. There is money available. And so I think if a fair proportion of that comes across to not just make people's lives easier, that's pointless. It's about educating people and showing them that they can expect more. And for those people who are not part of our group, I don't mean CC, but part of our mental concept, they have to change the way they do things. They can't just do it. I talked earlier about the complaints desk. You can't just do it because it makes their life easier and makes the customer's life harder. Everything that I've seen in the corporate world is designed to make the director's life easier and the customer life harder. And yet it's the customer's money that keeps the director in his or her position. So there's a concept of change about actually not being frightened about engaging with people. What is it you actually want? What would you like us to do? How can we change? What can we do better? How about taking some of these ordinary people off the street and putting them in the director's box? How about giving them a say? See, these are things that are, oh my God, we can't do that. We can't do that. So we've got 10 years, I think, to really get the wheel to turn. And then I think there will be less resistance. So it's got to be a long-term plan. I mean, we've had thousands of years where the human race has been oppressed. It's going to take more than 10 years just to turn it around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a little bit of a kickstart, I guess, to, kickstart this big 360-degree turn of consciousness on this planet, the way we do things. But yeah, if you think about government is exactly the same. People are so scared of the government, and they're afraid to, say what they really think, forgetting that, these people actually work for us, and we pay them, and, effectively they're our employees. And yeah, that we know that government, the whole structure is going to change and all of that. But maybe we can just segue into, where do you see things standing at the moment? I mean, we've had a lot of disclosure, over the past weeks. It's really ramped up in a big way. There's been a lot of activity in the sky, from, solar flares to eclipses and big shifts in our cosmos as well, in a way. Some people say there's been portals that have been opened. I'm just touching on a lot of different topics here, but maybe from your point of view, if you can summarize where you see the world is right now, where we are in this very covert war that is going on the planet.
You use the word correctly, covert. Well, there are two groups of people: the people who actively look, feel, and experience what you've said, and regrettably, a much larger group who don't feel, look, or experience what we've said. So when we look at news, we take a completely different story from somebody who, is very much at home in the matrix. And so a lot of the news stories are designed to play out to that group of individual who has a very establishment matrix type. And unfortunately, it's a fear-based thing. It's about fear. It's about the world is falling apart and our government doesn't care, or government can't do anything about it. And I don't feel safe like I used to. I used to get up in the morning and go to work and come home and watch the television, and I knew that tomorrow would be the same. Now they're worried that the same won't be the same. Now we are, on the other hand, looking at it and saying, like you've said, wow, look at this huge energy, how the human resonance of the earth has changed. We look at how people are no longer easily trusting the mainstream news. Look at all of that. Now, how do we bring these two separate groups, which actually at the moment are going like that? And the reality is something's got to happen to bring them like that. And that's, I think, just a short period of time away. And let's see who comes across the finish line. Let's see who wants to learn, who wants to say, okay, I hold my hand up. I believed what CNN said. I believed what the BBC said. I believed what the official news said. But now I see I was lied to. And crushingly, for many of these people, they will feel their whole life has been a lie. And that's very important for organizations like us, not to, as I said earlier, to jump in on that on a bad way, but basically to try and say, well, okay, let's move forward with it now, because there were those who saw the truth and those that didn't. Does it make us better? No, it just makes us more observant. And we will only win if we can get the majority of people to accept that where we need to go is the right way, and no more of this us and them atmosphere. You see, if that person has a reasonably good job, quite understandably, they don't want to lose that job. And you said about people being frightened of their governments with good reason. Look at the Capitol riots. Most of those people are in prison. So they should be frightened of their government because the government will put them in prison. There's no question of that if they want to. And it's about how do we break free of them? And what I think we learned was that storming a Capitol building isn't actually the right way to bring about change, because it's a violence and that doesn't actually bring about change. So we need to work in a different way. And CC is about working in a different way. It's working within the law, and it's working to empower people.
Very well said. We certainly have to do this in a very different way. Yes, standing up for your rights. Yes, advocating for change is what people need to do, but in a very peaceful way. Because if you want to change the status quo, you've got to do things differently, and take out the violence, take out that aspect of it. But as you say, as I understand what you said, is there will be some sort of event that will kind of unite people. But as I also hear you say, is there might be still some that will refuse that unification.
Sure, it's choice, free will. Yeah. You see, look, take South Africa, for instance, one of the most corrupt countries on the planet, but also one of the most deprived countries on the planet. The only way CC or any other organization can get in and make change is if the government either leaves the organization alone to do the work or actually is part of it. Now, if you go in, you say, I am going to make these changes, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. Politicians being what they are, they want votes. So they want to associate with it. They want to work with it. They don't want to work against it because they don't want to be seen as preventing progress. So governments throughout the world, when this RV hits, have a choice. They're either in with it or they're against it. And if they're against it, they will not be able to claim any credit for any of the developments that occur. If they help and assist, then they get their fair share of credit, and then sure, that will win them votes. So that's actually a fairly simple piece of math for most politicians to work out. As an ex-politician myself, I know that regardless of what political party, one of the most important things is job creation. In a local legislature or a federal-wide setting, it's always about creating jobs. So what will projects do? They'll create jobs, and they'll create well-paid jobs. There will be no rubbish money for people working in these projects. These projects will pay above the going rate. And they have to. It's part of the humanitarian deal, because if you employ somebody, they've got a mom or dad or brother or sister or whatever it is, and that money does filter down. And in Africa, you can support a large group of people just by paying the wages of one person. So I think Africa is a really exciting as a continent to good projects, and I think South Africa will be very interesting, as indeed will be Zimbabwe.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much to do here. But, the corruption goes so deep and it's so embedded in the mindset that I believe it's going to take a lot. But perhaps, when those taps that have been feeding certain people in power, when those taps are turned off, and, I believe things will change as well, because we all know kind of who owns or pulls the strings, rather, in this country and beyond, and there's different levels of that. But once at the very high level, things stop flowing, and I mean money, to the politicians that are instructed to carry out certain agendas, when that money stops flowing, I guess they will then have a choice. But I think there's a lot of people that want to see justice, and
Sure. How you think about a game of Monopoly? The world is about money, unfortunately. Think about a game of Monopoly, and one person, has got the top properties. They're all different, of course, in every country. But one person has the top properties and one person doesn't. But then what you do is you give to that person that doesn't a lot of money and say, you can't go and just do anything you want with it, but I want you to go and buy all the remaining properties on the Monopoly board. And then here's the money you need to put the houses. And what happens is the balance of power over the period of the game of Monopoly changes. So the elite people who had, the top houses are now actually pushed back because the others who may not have those great hotels and great streets, but they have an amount of property, real estate, and they are not engaging in nasty side deals. They are playing it straight. And so that's how the dynamics over a 10-year period will change, so that the people who have ruled the world forever will actually have to sit around the table with people like me and say, okay, we hear you want to open a project over here. We won't interfere with it. I mean, that's all I want. Just don't interfere with it. You don't have to help me. Just keep out of my hair. Don't interfere. And I think that goes for all projects. If you're doing something, you want your government, the local government of the land, to actually help so they can claim, as we talked about, that support and get the votes, or at the very least, just keep out of it, don't get involved. Whereas at the moment, what the elite are doing is crushing anything that isn't coming from their own mindset. So unless you've gone to the right schools or you've been to the right bank or this, that, and the other, you're not part of the gang, can't get on. And in Britain, over many years ago, about 1898, I think it was, a guy called Marks and Spencer set up a little table, and they sold vegetables and fruit. And the table cost them the equivalent of $100. From that, they went to a multinational company. You couldn't do that now because the elite wouldn't allow somebody that wasn't their friend to get to that level of power. And that's the difference. The same in the music industry. It's the same in everything. That needs to overturn, because America, particularly America, was supposed to be the country of ability. So if you had a great ability, it should be rewarded. But how is that true if you didn't get to the right background, or, the elite say, well, like the mafia ice cream sellers in parts of America and Italy, this is our street. You can't sell your ice cream here because we're here. Closed shop. So there's a lot to be played for in the future. It isn't just about people getting money, setting projects up. There is a great deal of politics, a great deal of negotiation, which has to run alongside this to allow those projects to develop. And anyone who doesn't understand that is not going to get a project off the ground. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And that's how the power will shift. And also the mentality will shift. As you say, 10 years is not necessarily the time that it will take much longer, but at least it will start cementing a shift in mentality.
Sure.
Which is great news. Now, we hear about the alliance and, the white hats and their plans, and there's not just the US, there's a plan for, all the different countries. But how involved do you think they're really getting on? I mean, I'm sure on certain countries they're more involved than others, but how involved do they really get? Because a lot of South Africans feel like, our situation is quite unique. What's happening in the US is not going to play out like this in South Africa. And how is corruption going to be removed? And how is, these people going to be paying really for their crimes? What do you think?
Okay.
What level involvement? Is it very minimal involvement? Is there a lot of involvement in these individual countries, or in your view, how do you see this?
So first of all, every country is unique. It's just that some has the spotlight on it all the time, like America, which must be very infuriating for, say, Uganda. In terms of the way the power plays, your question is actually very similar to another interview just a few days ago. My answer is going to be the same, which is in terms of the alliance, federation, whatever you want to call it, I don't know it under that term at all. It's really about empowering the good people with technology or ideas, which they then sow into their communities. The concept of empowered federation of light coming down and doing stuff, you can forget it, because that doesn't empower people at all. It just makes people sit back and say, oh, well, let them get on and do it. Why should I do anything if they're going to do it? So what's happened is people like, Trump and Putin, all the rest of it, who have this great following, whether it's good or evil, they have a following, whether people, love them or hate them. These individuals are key players in the system. And, people like Biden are no longer key players because they're stepping aside, and that's perfectly, acceptable. They're stepping aside and seeing what will happen. But generally speaking, external help doesn't come down in an obvious way. So the much vaunted medbeds, which is something that we shouldn't really have for another 250 years, that sort of level of technology has been gifted, but again, is not gifted just to anybody, but has been gifted to certain individuals or groups. And a quantum predictive computer, which would foresee not just probability patterns, because that's what a supercomputer does, but will actually see almost in the Akashic for the future, gives those good guys an edge that even the most advanced cabal guys do not have. You see, quantum physics exist in the fourth dimension in a readable format, but they're still corrupted. When you go into the fifth dimension and higher, then quantum entanglement is remarkably pure, as opposed to the fourth or here. So the assistance we've had is from the fifth dimension and higher, which means it outperforms anything the baddies have from their friends in the fourth dimension. So we have a situation where help and assistance is done covertly. A number of 5-6 years ago, a number of battles up in space where craft have been shot down or portals have been sealed up or blocked, was about as much as most people could perhaps glimpse and see. Even the battles under the earth, clearing out tunnels, which is not exclusively about saving children. There's another aspect to it, just as sinister. But that again is covert, neither side want to advertise them. How, if you're a good guy at this stage in the game, how could you possibly tell somebody that in a city of 1 million people, there was a foreign race living 2 miles down underneath your city? No one would go to work the next day. Trains would stop running. The taxis wouldn't run, because everyone would just be like, oh my God. So truth has got to be done gradually and gently. And I'll come back to what you said earlier on about human race being taken to that position so that it is consciously able to accept this level of new information, which is not taught in schools. And they've got to embrace that to survive and go forward. But you can't force feed people. So this primitive battle that we're seeing on the television, and it is very primitive, is a shame, but it's adjudged to be at the level of the majority of people. So, you and the people listening to this, it's not for them. This story that's playing out is not for them. It's not their narrative, because they've evolved beyond that. This is for those people who haven't yet decided to break free. Okay, I'm going to have to go now because I've got loads to do. I want to thank you so much for giving me the time to talk to you. You're a really great person. I love Africa greatly. You know that. And it's a key element in our views about the future. And I just want to thank, I'm going to do it now, thank everyone I'm sorry to put the spotlight back on America, helping out with the hurricane disasters out there. There are other places we do it as well. It's not just America, but at the moment, that's where we're trying to give the help. I just want to thank everyone, and not everyone, whether you're an administrator or a coordinator, event host, or a member in any country. Thank you for, believing that we can be better. It's so hard, actually, to think we can be better. I'm sick and tired of people saying to me, yes, but what can I do? I'm only on my own. What can I do? Well, that's the defeatist attitude ever since the time of the pharaohs and beyond. Is exactly what the high priests wanted people to think. Oh, what can I do? Yeah, because then you can be controlled. So thank you to everyone who broke free, and come on, the rest of you. If you haven't, time to break free and be a sovereign being. So listen, God bless. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you so much, Simon. Very well said. And we hope to see you in South Africa at some point. Africa is going to be rising, and we look forward to having you here. And thanks again. So connectingconsciousness.com. Just remind me for the website.
SimonPark.org. And we are opening a few. I can't say what it is because we'll be inundated, but we are opening a very exciting sort of room, shall we say. So people pop in, look at the website, you'll see some developments coming. And if it's something that you think that, it's nothing to do with projects, but if it's something that you have experience of, then you might want to join. And as I say, it's free. We don't charge. There's no hidden subscription. It's free. You join when you want, you leave when you want, free will. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Simon. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. See you soon. Bye. Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because we've lost 2 channels on YouTube and we have to rebuild, get the truth out, inspire people. It's time to unite. So if you enjoyed the conversation, please like the video, comment, let us know where you're from, and share with friends and family. And all the other links are below. I'll leave Simon's links below, and then also all of my links. Join us on Telegram as well, where we share uncensored truth and news and inspiration on a daily basis. So we look forward to seeing you all there, and I'm sending you all much love. Speak to you soon.